wanted to speak about the Transfiguration because a lot of times people don't know what the Transfiguration is. A lot of people don't know that it's a feast day. Um, so, and actually, in the Orthodox tradition, it's something that a feast that's emphasized more so than it is in the West. And I'll get to why. But before we do, I just wanted to, before we do anything else, just read the gospel passage for the day, okay? Because if you don't know what happened, it's going to be important, right? So the gospel passage that we read in the Divine Liturgy, which we'll read tomorrow here at church, is from the Gospel according to St. Matthew, okay? Chapter 17, verses 1 through 9. It's here, it says, "At that time, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John his brother, and led them up a high mountain apart. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his garments became white as light. And behold, there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with him. And Peter said to Jesus, 'Lord, it is well that we are here. If you wish, I will make 3 booths here, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah.' He was still speaking, when lo, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, 'This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him.' When the disciples heard this, they fell on their faces and were filled with awe. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, 'Rise and have no fear.' And when they lifted up their eyes, they saw no one but Jesus alone. And as they were coming down the mountain, Jesus commanded them, 'Tell no one the vision until the Son of Man is raised from the dead.'" Okay. So, what we have here is Christ revealing his glory to a select few. It says Peter and James, his brother. And he went up to a mountain to do so. Okay. And this is consistent with the Old Testament, right? Where did Moses encounter God?
On a mountain.
On a mountain, Mount Sinai. And there was smoke, there was a cloud there. Well, in this case, dark cloud came, and God said, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." Right? And also, Elijah encounters God. He's taken up from a mountain into heaven. So those two are there with Jesus. Right? So, before I give it all away, does anybody have any thoughts about that? I just want you guys to think about that. It's very significant. This feast is actually huge.
In terms of what specifically?
Just anything that comes to mind in relation to the fact that Elijah and Moses are there, and that Jesus is there transfigured.
This might not be what you're aiming for, but I think it's interesting how there are witnesses, 3 of whom there to actually behold this event, whereas in other faiths we tend to see a prophet going up to a mountain on his own, and just that's sort of it, and everyone's expected to believe it. But there's actual 3 of the disciples who actually saw it themselves.
Yep.
So I just think that's kind of interesting. But
Yep.
probably
There are eyewitnesses, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that is significant, absolutely. Yeah, it wasn't just one prophet going up to a mountain and having some angel tell him to go and take his brother's wife or something stupid like that. What we actually had on the other hand was, Christ transfiguring, showing his glory, showing that he's the Son of God. Right? So it's the same encounter that Elijah would have had, the same encounter, more specifically, more importantly, one that we can understand more clearly is Moses on Mount Sinai. Now, we know it to be Mount Tabor, and every year at Mount Tabor, a cloud descends on the mountain on the Feast of the Transfiguration. Not according to the new calendar, according to the old calendar.
Right.
That's the calendar that they maintain in Jerusalem. The Patriarchate of Jerusalem still goes according to the old calendar. And on that day, a cloud descends on the mountain. Okay, and there's actually a church there. But there are a couple of reasons why Elijah and Moses being there is significant. Okay, first of all, you've got the law and the prophets, right? So Christ showing that he's the fulfillment of both. Really, really important there, right? That he's the fulfillment of both the law and the prophets. But more importantly, it's also showing, because Christ interacted with them. In other gospel accounts, he actually speaks to them. Okay, speaking to Moses and to Elijah. Who spoke to Moses and who spoke to Elijah? Who spoke to Moses? The most obvious one for all of us, the one that we all remember more clearly. Who speaks to Moses on the mountain?
The Lord?
Yeah, the Lord. God, right? And who is present there at this stage, right? It's God. Christ, the Word of God. Now, when you look at word in Hebrew, I forget what the actual term is again. Devar Yahweh is, what is that? The Spirit of God. I mix them up for some reason. My Hebrew is horrendous, right? Word is not only a spoken word in Hebrew. It actually entails an action, something happening. So when we say in the Creed, through whom all things were made, when we speak about Christ, true life from true life, all these things, we're saying he's God, through whom all things were made. Well, everything happens through him, right?
Dabar.
I was right, Devar Yahweh. I was right, yeah, Devar Yahweh. So according to the Old Testament, the Word of God, the Logos, the Word of God, and if you actually take the Greek word Logos, it means more than word, okay? It actually entails the Logos as the point of reason, almost like the criterion of all reason kind of thing, right? And some of the fathers actually speak about that. Everything is dependent on Christ on the cross. He balances everything. It's the criterion of truth, which is Christ himself, right? So when we see Christ revealing his divinity, he's actually transcending everything in the process. He transcends his physical flesh, which he's taken on. And he also, as St. Gregory Palamas says in his writings, he transcends time. He transcends time. So he's actually speaking to Elijah and Moses on the mountain at that point outside of time. Okay? So think of it as Christ showing that he goes through the created order completely. Right? So I remember when I was reading this and learning this, it was like one of those aha moments, like one of those moments where you just like light bulb goes off and you're like, oh, what? But yeah, he's speaking to them. He's the burning bush, right? He's the burning bush. He's speaking to them then. He's revealing his divinity then. The cloud descending on the mountain then. It's all the same. It's all the same thing. He's showing, revealing his divinity, not only the glory and so far as he was shining like the sun and his garments were like light, but he's actually showing that he's God. He's showing that he's the divine word. I am that I am. He is being. He's showing them what he is. Right?
You could also say that just when we were talking about Logos and
Yes.
the words there and how they meant something more than just they meant reason, you could see that as almost like him showing that he's the fulfillment of the law of
Yeah.
Moses as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, just another thing I noticed.
Yeah, definitely showing that he's the fulfillment of the law and the prophets there, which is significant. And also, another element of this feast that's so important is the fact that he's showing them before he goes to his passion. Why is he doing that? because he wants them to know. He couldn't show all of them. The hymn we actually chant actually says, he only revealed to them insofar as they could bear, as much as they could bear, right? Just like all of us spiritually, on a certain level, we can only accept certain things. We can only handle so much. God gives us only what we can handle. Well, in this case, he gave them what they could handle, and they were thrown to the ground, right? But he needed these apostles to see this, so that when he went to his passion, first of all, it shows that he's God. He's going there willingly. He didn't have to go, right? But secondly, for them to be prepared for the resurrection, to show that he transcends time, to show that he transcends all these things, that he's beyond all of it, right?
The disciples wouldn't have known what he meant when he was talking about the weight of the resurrection of the Son of Man. Would they all-
No, they wouldn't have known specifically exactly what it was. No, and he never told them, because they kept asking him, as he was going up to it, and they all ran away when he was actually taken in to be crucified, right? So they all ran away, except for John, who remained and was at the foot of the crucified Lord with his mother Mary and with the myrrh-bearing women who didn't believe. But all the other apostles departed, dispersed.